Another day, another delay. With a 1,000+ person public transit conference in town, RTD trains again arrive at Malfunction Junction. People were bussed along the H, E, and F light rail lines after damage to the overhead power system. Embarrassing for a time, perhaps, but if anybody understands that public transit, like any form of transportation, is not perfect, well, it would be the folks in town for that conference. In the pantheon of RTD's public relations problems lately, that's a pretty small one, you know. Today, RTD pushed back in the strongest terms yet against what Aurora's mayor said right here yesterday, that proposed service cuts to his city's R line are an abandonment by RTD of its responsibility to Aurora. Ridership is way below projections on that line. I asked RTD spokesman Nate Curry if that isn't RTD's fault.
Those projections are based off the initial plans, and those plans change. And so that's something that we're struggling with as far as that narrative that's out there right now.
I think everybody understands that numbers might be off by a little bit. But when we're talking about the R line in Aurora, I mean, the train is like a scene from The Walking Dead. Like, there aren't live people in sight, and the projection was more than double what you're seeing there. How is it that far off?
Well, the honest answer to that is the original line was going to go straight up I-225. It was going to go through the hospital, and so at the hospital's request, at Aurora's request, we worked with them. We didn't go through the hospital, and we did this horseshoe around the city center area, and you know, it's going to be a good economic development for Aurora, but when you add deviance like that, it adds travel time, and frankly, if travel time is one of the most impactful things that people take into consideration. Is it going to take me an hour to get there on the train? It's going to take me 30 minutes to get there by driving. I'm going to drive.
Speaking of economic development, Aurora Mayor Steve Hogan said here yesterday that RTD service cuts to the R line and to the W line out west to Lakewood send the wrong message, just as the metro area is trying to convince Amazon to come here. Let me tell you, RTD is having none of that.
You know, if they want the success of the R line just as much as we do, they need to be out there promoting it with us. You know, if they want that economic development to happen, that's their obligation. Our job at RTD is to move people. We're a mobility agency. We're not an economic development agency. We're not a redevelopment agency for property. Our job is just to move people. And so to somehow imply that what we're doing by being good stewards of our resources and a regional perspective might impact a large corporation's decision to move a second headquarters here is a little disingenuous, I think.
Curry suggested that along with turning people out for Thursday's public meeting on the service cuts, perhaps Aurora should be putting more effort into getting people to ride the train. Our full interview also touches on the timeline for the long-delayed train out to Arvada and when people can finally expect the A-line horns to go quiet. You can see all that in this interview on the next YouTube channel. You are getting a refund from Comcast if you lost service last night and were forced to just sit there and read a book or listen to music or, God forbid, talk to your family. Comcast is still totaling up the exact numbers. Fiber line was cut during a construction project. Comcast wouldn't say where. We certainly feel for all the businesses that were up excrement creek without their internet, but it was kind of amusing to watch all the rest of you freak out when your night turned into no Netflix, just chill. If Denver's homelessness issues could be solved simply, well, then Mayor Hickenlooper's full court press would have made a dent. 9 News reporter Eddie Randall shows us today's new approach.
I think solutions start here.
Solving the homeless problem in Denver is not something that can be done in one day.
Every service here today is free.
Chris Connor, interim director of Denver's Road Home, says Project Homeless Connect gives people help and hope.
And we do that also by pairing each guest coming here in need with a community volunteer.
Where are you from?
Megan Ryder is volunteering for the first time.
Colorado, north side, east side, south side, west side, Aurora.
While Kendall Bartlett is on the receiving end of that help.
I was living on the street, rain, sleet, snow, sunshine.
He's been homeless for 13 years.
2004, I just left out the house with what I had on. I was hurt.
Back then, he didn't want help. He says he felt he could do it on his own.
This whole line here is just housing.
Now, he thinks differently.
I look around, it's a lot of opportunity.
People here are getting help with resumes, jobs, and housing.
It is a start.
Which is what Deb Gray with Denver's Housing Authority sees as the biggest issue.
You know, these folks come up, you know, that are coming here today, and they don't want to be in a shelter, you know, they don't want to be living on the street.
This event was not meant to fix everyone's problems or answer every single question, but it is a start for a better future.
I think everybody leaves here at least with something.
For Next, I'm Eddie Randall.
If political fighting is a sport, then Colorado's getting ready for overtime. We are 2 weeks away from a special session of the state legislature. Republicans and Democrats don't agree on how to fix a problem with a tax law they passed this year, but they do agree there is a problem. And that, come on, politics guy Brandon Rinman, that's got to be a start.
Well, they screwed up.
Well, they screwed up. All right, very good. Republicans want to go back to voters and approve the fix, taxpayer bill of rights and all. Democrats think they can just get in there and tweak the law. 420 organizers continue to fight for their right to partay in Civic Center Park. All-day arguments were heard inside the Webb building. Those organizers filed an appeal to see if they can get Denver to lift the 3-year ban on their group holding an event there. The ban was put into place after the big mess left behind by the 420 event. The city and 420 organizers they're calling up witnesses, kind of like a trial. There's a hearing officer. They're hoping that things will wrap up tomorrow. We'll keep you updated. Denver International Airport's original deal for an enormous, flashy new welcome sign to our city has fallen apart, all because of an obscure federal rule. So now the airport needs a literal act of Congress to make money off the sign's ads as planned. The 900 light poles are being strung up along Pena Boulevard as scheduled. The sign should be operational by the end of October, but a federal highway rule that the airport didn't know about is limiting them to advertising on premises only. So they can't sell big welcome to Denver messages to events and corporations. And no offense to the on-premises airport retailers like Climax Jerky, Rebel Popcorn, and Kazoo and Company Toy Store, but their budgets are not going to be enough to pay for the sign. The airport's going to get stuck paying for the whole $14.5 million bill up front. They plan to basically go halvesies with Panasonic on this sign and then split all the money that rolled in from ads. But Panasonic split when the ad plans ran into trouble. So the airport's asking Congress to fix the issue, also appealing directly to the Trump administration. But until they act, there are only so many messages that DIA can legally put up on its shiny new sign. Might I suggest a daily update on whether or not the A-line is working? I don't blame this guy for choosing Colorado for his recovery. I'd want to be far from the ocean, too, if I had his track record with sharks.
I knew how much blood I was losing, and I didn't think I was going to make it.
The most Colorado thing we saw today is a different type of mountain biking. And a woman places an ad for her husband, trying to find him a friend. That's next. Kavika Matsu considers himself unlucky. Seems a pretty fair assessment after 2 sharks literally took a bite out of his backside. He's recuperating in Colorado, a sort of second home. And it's far from the ocean, so that's a plus. He spoke with our Anastasia Bolton.
If I'm not in the ocean, I'm up here in the mountains in Colorado generally.
A mountain stroll is a form of therapy for many.
Normally I'd be here 3-4 days a week.
For Kavika Matsu,
so I try and do it every other day.
It's physical therapy now.
That's what happens when you're missing muscles and stuff. Mother Nature's something you always have to respect because she can take your life at any time.
Just 2 months ago, nature almost killed Matsu.
You got to start from scratch.
He was living his dream life on Ascension Island, a remote spot in the Atlantic, halfway between Africa and Brazil. Every moment he had, he spent on the water. Monday, July 24th, he went out on his paddleboard.
Next thing I knew, I was 4 or 5 feet in the air, and I was looking back down into the water, and I could just see a shark the size of my paddleboard. So it was about a 14-foot shark. And as soon as I hit the water, not even a second, I felt one latch right onto my right arm and shoulder. And I gave him a good punch right in the nose. One punch, didn't do nothing, and I hit him the second time, and I let go, and I was looking right at it.
Matsu said a second shark bit his hip and pulled him under. He lost his tricep.
These are shark teeth marks here. That's from the teeth of the shark.
He made a tourniquet from his leash to stop the bleeding on his arm and leg.
Well, I didn't think I was going to make it.
Matzo has been fighting nature ever since that day in the water. He's trying to get his strength back. It's going slower, he's slower than he'd like.
I feel like I'm one of the most unlucky people in the world. I mean, people say I'm blessed for the outcome of what happened to me, but to me, I'm never really going to be truly recovered until I can go back to how I was living.
For next, I'm Anastasia Bolton.
Matsu thinks he'll be well enough by the end of the month that he'll be able to sit on that long flight back home to Hawaii.
Well, if you've been outside at all today, I'm sure you felt the winds. Wind gusts 30, 40, 50 miles per hour. High fire danger across most of eastern Colorado with the red flag warning still in place. Will continue until about 8 o'clock tonight. Humidity values have been extremely low. We're watching a cold front dig into the state. This is spurring up the wind. 51 mile per hour gusts in Watkins as well as Fort Morgan right now. Winds between 20 and 30 miles per hour around the urban corridor. These winds will simmer down later tonight once this cold front pushes through. It keeps all the wet weather to our north, a dry front, but it will be cooling off our temperatures, relatively speaking, tomorrow. Back to where they should be in the upper 70s. A brisk beginning to the day, but that sunshine should make it feel pretty good by tomorrow afternoon. We hit 80 degrees in Greeley, upper 70s, low 80s along the eastern side of Colorado, and 60s up in the high country. Of course, all eyes on the Atlantic. Hurricane Maria, now a Category 5 storm, winds sustain at 175 miles per hour. The storm system is going to be bearing down on Puerto Rico as well as the Virgin Islands within the next 24 hours. It is an absolute monster. We'll continue to track this. Back here at home, temperatures going to be staying in the 80s the next couple of days, actually close to 90 on Thursday. If you're a fan of the summer heat, soak it in while you can. We officially welcome in the fall season. On Friday, temperatures sitting in the lower 80s, isolated storms, and then a stronger storm pushes in for the weekend, dropping daytime highs into the upper 50s, low 60s with a good chance of rain around here.
Yeah, that'll be fall. All right, thanks, D. Grant. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a stay-at-home mom who appears to do everything except stay at home. When Kelly Carley isn't fighting fires as a volunteer with North Fork Fire in Pine, she's out on the trails. If she's passed you, you would remember. Trust me. Our Mike Grady has her story.
Just this line right here coming up through these rocks.
There's all manner of ways for a cyclist to navigate this gnarly rock feature on the little Scraggy Trail.
Down here and then off that bottom one.
Kelly Carley is looking for something very particular.
Just trying to scope it out and see what's going to make me fall.
Luckily, she knows one approach
just hop it
will work for sure. Kelly's been ripping trails on her unicycle for the last 3 years. She didn't exactly seek out the sport.
I got into mountain unicycling when my son got into unicycling, and he told me I was too old to learn how to ride a unicycle, so I just wanted to prove him wrong.
Showing up her son,
I was out riding him within a couple weeks.
Brought out Kelly's competitive side in this year's North American Unicycling Championships.
I took second place downhill and third place overall.
But getting on the podium isn't what keeps Kelly cranking.
I would say all the people that I've met through unicycling. All my new friends.
New friends and new adventures.
We did a month-long trip through the French and Swiss Alps, about 300 miles. Completely unsupported. We carried all of our own stuff.
It was a little squirmy.
Noli Ergas connected with Kelly this year. When he's in town, he never passes up a chance to ride.
But when you meet someone unicycling, you're like instantaneously friends.
And it's always great to meet up with people.
Kelly's found a route she's stoked to be riding.
It's a blast. It's become a huge part of my life.
One that she plans to keep exploring.
And I honestly can't imagine not doing it.
For next, I'm Mike Grady.
Kelly says learning the unicycle was easier than at least I would have guessed. About 10 hours of practice. And she guesses there are a few dozen mountain unicyclists on the Front Range. The kind of news show that is going to run an ad disguised as news, but this woman didn't pay us to mention her ad, trying to find her husband a friend. Has your email ever traveled back in time? Mine did to 1969. We figured out why. Then a young Coloradan continues his negotiations with the tooth fairy. Kid keeps losing teeth, but puts nothing under the pillow. Sounds like a scam to me. Next. The ad of sorts that caught our eye seemed to be advertising a man. A woman in Centennial posted on Facebook asking if anyone needs a Gary. Gary needs a friend. And Gary's wife needs him out of the house every now and then. It struck us as a very sweet and very real glimpse of the kind of everyday life that often gets ignored.
Seeking friend for husband. I can't believe I'm putting an ad out there for my husband, but Lord knows this man needs a friend. Does your husband enjoy college and pro football? Is he handy around a car? Does he know his way around a gun and enjoy manly walks through the woods? Then he needs a Gary. What is a Gary, you ask? Great question. Gary is 31 years old, U.S. Army veteran, avid bow hunter, and lover of all things football. Connoisseur of American muscle cars and gym rat. Those easily upset by excessive cursing and loud noises may want to consider not getting a Gary. We here at My Friend Gary Inc. understand that a Gary may not be for everyone. If you think your husband may enjoy a Gary, please let us know. I got my Gary in July of 2015. Online, actually, that Amazon thing. Finding Gary, you could easily find him in just about any sports bar. I had a couple women respond thinking it was probably the funniest thing they had seen, and had a couple other women respond saying that they think that their husband and Gary would be a good match and that we should make times to hang out and see how well that worked. Like, you already have your perhaps established friends from, you know, college or high school. But if you are in a new place and you don't know anyone, it's really difficult, especially if you're a parent. It's hard trying to meet someone who you can click with and you can be weird with. I feel like everyone should have a Gary in their life, mainly just for the great friendship and relationship that you can form with him. He's quiet at first, but trust me, he'll get there. That's really it.
Morgan and her Gary already have plans thanks to the Facebook post. They're meeting up with another couple this weekend to watch some football. Good use for a Gary. Comes from me, because yesterday I got an email from the past, from decades ago, December 31st, 1969. So my mind went to the logical conclusion. A time traveler. But it turns out that there is actually an even more logical explanation. It is a computer operating system called Unix, system that's used on computers and web servers and most recently smartphones. The original system for it was developed in 1969, and that's the reason why if the time is ever reset or lost on your computer or your phone, then December 31st of 1969 might pop up. It's because the Unix system began January 1st of 1970, began in Europe. U.S. is in the Western Hemisphere. It's a day behind, and that is why your phone thinks that it is December 31st, 1969, and you're getting emails. Mind blown. Another big request for the Truth Fairy to trust a child. And your feedback next. A while back, we told you about a young Coloradan named TJ's exorbitant demands of the Tooth Fairy. He lost his tooth at school and misplaced it. Wrote a note to the Tooth Fairy in April explaining why he didn't have the tooth. And he asked for $100, but said 90 would be okay. Seems very reasonable, right? Tooth Fairy brought him $5. Flash forward to this week. TJ says he's lost another tooth. And he says he swallowed this one. Kid keeps losing teeth that he can't produce. He wrote, "Dear Tooth Fairy, swallowed my tooth when I ate my watermelon. I want 6. Scratch that. $5. TJ now knows the market. Gary Barman says, understand what you meant by excrement creek, but this is a family broadcast. I suggest instead up sanitary seaway without a mode of transportation.